All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Michelle Yarovsky. I lead product for analytics here at UiPath, and I'll be walking you through UiPath Insights. So you just introduced myself, but I'll also be joined by AJ Salzberg, who's on my team as well. He's a product manager, and Dina Owen, who has worked so much with Insights with customers. She's a senior RPA developer, and they have some tips for you on how to use Insights effectively. So just a quick note about where Insights fits in with the UiPath platform. You spend a lot of time investing in building your workflows, learning the platform, but if you can't measure what those workflows did, what the robots accomplished, how do you understand if what you invested in was worth something? So our goal as the measure part of the UiPath platform is to give you transparency not only into the success rate of your robots and how many automations you've run, but also if you have reached the business milestones that you were hoping to achieve with RPA, and maybe some other ones that came as a happy accident. So what we do as an analytics solution is we offer you RPA operation transparency via things like surfacing errors, robot utilization, success rate of your automations, how long they took, outcomes of your processes that you define, time savings and money savings via an ROI template, and much more. To get you started, we offer you with some out-of-the-box templates. These are meant for you to grab them, make a copy, and then make modifications. So you can almost think of them as a way for you to make your own out-of-the-box dashboards for your company. When you copy them, we again hope you're about 75% of the way there. You modify them, and then you share them out so that all of your other users have a template that you've built for them that's curated to your business. You can also share or schedule these reports, and you can share or schedule any reports that you've built on Insights, whether it's the templates we provide or something that you've built yourself. We also want to make sure that you're kept up to date with alerts and milestones for your company without constantly having to go to the dashboard to look at them. So you can set custom alerts on metrics of your choice, whether you want to stick with things like, again, checking success rate, because that's something that's always good to keep your eye on, or something that's super custom to your implementation, whether it's the number of invoices processed or how much time or money you've saved. And of course, we give you an ROI template so that you can get started to track the ROI on your investment. So you've got UiPath, you've invested in it, and you want to know not only time and money saved, but also business benefits. So with our template that we provide, you can get started and then share this information with your executive. And we are extremely excited to announce that Insights is now available in Automation Cloud. So you get to pick your deployment option, whether you want to stick on-prem or join the Automation Cloud family. So back to the templates. These are meant for you. We want to make sure that we give you operational templates, meaning things that just kind of let you check a health status of your deployment. So the processes, queues, and robots templates are meant for you to get started with things like success rate, how many transactions you've processed, and robot utilization. Whereas the ROI template is more targeted towards your business and tracking those impacts I was mentioning earlier. All of this is around performance tracking. You want to know how many hours a day you're utilizing your robots. Are you utilizing them effectively or not? Which robots are erroring out the most? And what is that common error that you're seeing? All of these are to allow you to troubleshoot so that you don't have to wait for all of your automations to fail for you to go back and see why. So you can start looking process by process, robot by robot, even specified metrics of your choice that allow you to see where you should drill down to stop problems before they become big problems. So you can do that via the robots dashboard. Again, that's a view into your robots. The processes dashboard, which is a view into automations from Orchestrator, and queues, which are all about transactional processing. Something that we see extremely often is a success rate that starts dropping rapidly. So what could happen here? Tons of options. This could be a selector that was not found. This could be an application that is now failing and can't open, but you would never know unless you went to a dashboard and actually saw this. So what happens here? You go to the processes template, you see that your success rate went from 95 to 60%, which is a big problem. We offer you a overview at the very top of the dashboard on 3 metrics that we think are extremely important when it comes to tracking deployment health. So success rate being one of them, right in the top right of the dashboard. So when you see that success rate drop, you can scroll right down to the top 10 processes with faulted jobs widget. This will show you in a very kind of clear scatter plot form if there are any outliers that have far more faults than the rest. Normally, if your success rate is dropping this low, it's either going to be 1 or 2 processes or all of them. So you'll be able to see these numbers right on this widget. Like I said, normally it's about 1 or 2. So you can drill into those 1 or 2 processes by clicking the specific circle associated with that process, and it acts as a filter. We call this cross-filtering. Some people call this drilling down. It's really up to you what you want to call it. But the point is that the entire dashboard metrics will filter to match this process name. Then we give you an error details widget, which just kind of lists out your process name, your robot name, when the error happened, as well as the error reason. And this is the real power of the dashboard, because you get to see what was the specific error that's causing so many problems. Very, very often it's going to be a selector not found exception. Maybe you didn't make your selectors dynamic enough. Maybe the element you were looking for has moved. And if you're using something like ID in your selector, that's going to cause it to be different now because they've moved it around in the UI or something like that. You'll see the number of times you've encountered the specific errors, and then you can go back to your workflows and take some action. So why is this important? Because you need visibility into those errors so that you can enforce better development practices. We see this a lot with selectors that are not dynamic enough, is that, they work one day and the next day they don't. So it's extremely important for you to make sure that your development is accounting for these things. You also want to maximize the effectiveness of your automations. If they're failing all of the time, they're obviously not accomplishing the things that you were hoping for, which then, of course, decreases the entire efficiency of your overall deployment and also puts you at risk of automation backlogs and not meeting business goals. So it's extremely important to keep an eye on success rate and make sure that you understand why your processes have failed and catch them before it becomes a widespread problem. Now, from a very different side, we have the ROI dashboard. Everyone is very interested in finding out if they have saved the time and money that they thought they were going to with RPA. This is your chance to start measuring it right from Insights. So we give you a way to enter the manual time it took a human to complete a process, as well as the hourly cost it would take them to do so, and we provide you this template. Now, we've increased the scope of this to allow you to enter per process and per queue, as well as merge those two together when you're doing calculations. So the template only works off of processes, but this is the power of Insights in the sense that you can make that dashboard copy. Now this is yours. You can modify it with anything you'd like, change the formulas, add things together from processes and queues. And we also allow you to add custom columns. So if you have some kind of custom business benefit that you want to track, this is the place, and you can surface it right in this dashboard. This is a way for you to be tracking over time and also at any specific moment how much time and money you've saved. And you can do that with the built-in filters, or if you make a copy, you can add your own. Alerts are extremely important because you don't want to be stuck looking at a dashboard all of the time just to see what happened. You're not always going to be next to your laptop, and it's important for you to know when events happen, even if you're not looking at the dashboard directly. So alerts are a way for you to do this and stay kind of up to date on what's going on with your automations. So you can set this on something as granular as one process and the number of transactions per that process, or something at the dashboard level. So if you want to set it at your tenant level per number of processes run, that works too. Success rate is always a key one that I advertise for alerts, because if your success rate is too high, you might end up with a situation where errors are not being caught, but the process is still being marked as successful, which is a problem for you because that means it's not accomplishing what you wanted it to. And you also don't know to check why it failed. Conversely, a very low success rate is going to mean that errors are happening and you need to act quickly. So treat alerts as a way for you to know when it's time to either celebrate a really important milestone or get involved quickly and drill down to see what happened. You can also share reports with people that are not even inside of Insights as users or even in Automation Cloud. So for example, the ROI Dashboard, maybe you want to share that out with the CFO. So with our sharing option and scheduling, you can send a PDF of this dashboard right to the key stakeholders that need it. And you can also, of course, share with anyone that's on the application. You can share specific dashboards. You can schedule them to be sent out every day, once a month. These are yours to customize. So this is a way to make sure that everyone is staying kind of on track and knows what's going on without having to go into Insights and view that dashboard. And once again, I just wanted to call out our multiple deployment options. So again, we have just launched Insights as an automation cloud service not so long ago. This is now a way for you to move to the cloud and have analytics there. And we are, of course, supporting our on-prem deployment. This will always be available to you, and we are excited to keep on supporting it. And with that, let's show you a quick demo. Okay, so what you see here is our homepage on Insights. So this is our templates. We give you, like I said, the processes, queues, and robots templates, as well as the ROI template. And these are meant for you to get started. You can make copies of them. You can schedule them directly. You can set alerts on them directly. They're meant to get you a lot of the way there. And we will continue updating templates for you so that you have access to new things. We will update the templates themselves, add new ones, and you will especially see this expand as we start integrating with other products. So the processes, queues, and robots, like I said, are operational. The business ROI dashboard is meant just for you to be tracking time and money saved. Now, if you think about what these dashboards are really meant for, we want to make sure that we give you use case specific dashboards as well. So we will be giving, hopefully soon, templates that are meant for invoice processing. But let's look at processes for now. So as this loads, like I mentioned, that top bar is all about the metrics that are important to you. So number of processes ran, average job duration, and success rate. So success rate is super interesting for alerts, and you can see I have that little bell there. So we'll come back to that. But one thing we want to make sure is that your success rate is not too high or too low. So if you're gearing towards about 100%, like I mentioned earlier, you probably have unresolved errors that you need to drill into. So let's scroll down and see if we have any processes with faulted jobs. Looks like we do have one. Let's take a look at why. So we'll hover over it, see our process name, the number of faulted jobs, and how many times it ran. It looks like we actually have a pretty high number of faults. So we'll drill into it and see why by clicking. And now you see we have this process name filter added for this process. It affects the entire dashboard. We scroll up and we see that success rate is 59%. So there's clearly something going wrong. We'll scroll back down to our error details widget, just quickly looking at how many times it's run per week. And here you see we have the process name, the robot name, the date, the error reason, which will expand now so that you can see. You see it says a UI element was not found. So this is one of the most common errors, and you see it happened 144 times. So this is extremely important to drill into, and this is a way for you to get started. And if we're looking at troubleshooting in general, this processes dashboard is like a one-stop shop. So let's clear out that filter, and we'll talk about alerts. So if we go back to our success rate, you see we have that little bell. I already set an alert prior, so let's take a look at it. We'll edit this alert, and we'll see that I set a condition for when the success rate is less than 90%. You can choose from any condition you want. It should send me an email. So right now we only support email integrations, but we do hope to expand this to more. By default, it'll send an email to me just because this is my user email. But the real power here is that you can send this to anyone. So whether it's yourself, your manager, a bunch of people, their emails can be external to your organization. You can send it to an IT manager, C-level, and you can pick the frequency. So it's set to daily by default, and you can also set the time. So we'll cancel this, and we'll take a look at the other things that we can do. So one thing you can do is you can download the dashboard as a PDF or CSV as a one-off, or you can schedule this report to be sent out. So if we go to schedule delivery, you see here we have settings. It's set to daily, but you can change that frequency. You can also set the time at which it is delivered. Destination is once again email, and we have that same option of delivering to any email address of your choosing. You can pick the format, whether it's a CSV zip file or a PNG. By default, it'll be a PDF. You can make sure that your active filters make sense. So if you want to set a specific filter, let's say for your default folder, this is the place to do it. You can add a custom message and fit the page to dashboard, pick some paper settings, and you can also set the delivery time zone. So if someone is not in the same time zone as you, you can do it there. So let's move on and we'll take a look at how to copy a dashboard from your templates. You see I've made a lot of copies already. So make a copy of the processes dashboard. We'll call it processes copy new. You see I've made some copies before. So this will take me right to the dashboard itself, and it's mine to modify. So I am now the owner of this dashboard, and I can do anything with this dashboard as I see fit. It does not affect the templates. So let's add a new visualization. And here we have some explorers. You can think of these as just general buckets you want your fields to kind of fall under. We're looking at orchestrator jobs right now, so we'll go with the jobs explorer. Let's add a new widget. Let's go to the jobs view. I would like my process name and which robots ran it. So select those two fields and click run, which queries our database directly. Let's wait for this to load. Perfect. Let's stick it in a table. We have tons of other visualization options available, but the table should do just fine. Let's also give this a quick title. So probably processes by robot name. Perfect. And save. Now, if we scroll down to the bottom of this dashboard, here we are. So like I said, this is my dashboard. I am the owner. It is now mine to do with as I see fit. And the last thing we're going to take a look at is configuring the ROI data set. So keep in mind, only an admin has this permission right now, but this is where you enter in the values for time and money saved. So by default, we have your manual time and minutes column, as well as hourly costs. And you see we have a test column here. So this is where you can add all of your custom columns and surface them as you're building dashboards. We can also enter per queue. So we were just looking at per process. Here, the same things apply: manual time, hourly cost, and a custom column. Lastly, if we look at all of our copies here, we'll go to a copy of the ROI dashboard that I made. And right here, this is only based on values from processes and that config we were just looking at. But you can see that this dashboard is a really good starting point for you to calculate these metrics that are important to you. So all of this can be edited, customized to meet your needs. And okay. And we hope that you find the product to be very useful, and may your insights be insightful, as I always like to say. And with that, let's talk about some best practices to make sure that you can surface the metrics that matter to you in your business. So I'm going to hand it over to AJ, and he and Dina will get you started.
Thank you, Michelle. And now to talk about our best practices, I can start with adding in manual information to the custom columns in the ROI dashboard. And this is very useful for adding in information like number of FTEs, the cost of development, or any other factor that you would want to incorporate into your business metrics. And here we can enter all of that manual information and add that to any of our predefined formulas to include any additional information that is not in our business ROI templates. Second, if a process does not use a queue, we can always add in any fields that we want to track within Insights. If it does not use a queue, we must make sure to use the add log fields activity. And if we're using it on premise, we need to make sure that that log field occurs at the end of our workflow, because that's where we actually read in all of our logs. But if we are using this type of method in the cloud, the location actually doesn't matter because we ingest all the logs. And lastly, if a process does use a queue, then we can add any custom data very easily. We can add any of the data to the item information, output, or analytics properties, and then we can surface that data in Insights and use that with any of our predefined widgets, or create any new formulas encompassing any of this information. Now, to talk a little bit more about our best practices with actually employing any custom information, I'll hand this off to Dina, where she can talk about our best practices for actual development.
Thanks, AJ. So AJ just explained that there are two ways to get custom data from our processes into Insights, and that's queues and custom logging. So I'm going to show you which activities in Studio to look for and their different properties. So let's start with queues. Over here, I have an example of a queue item that holds file information. So file type, file path, and some other custom data that I'm utilizing. So this is my view in Orchestrator from a queue item. And you'll see here we have three different data types. So we have specific data, we have output data, and we have analytics data. And these are the three areas of queues that you could utilize for all of your custom variables. Let's talk about specific data. So specific data is more common and developers will use this one more often. Anytime we are going through our process and we want to add queue items, we use our add queue item activity, or you can use add transaction item activity. And we know that this holds our item information, which you see down here. And this is basically just a name value pair. So you'll see here, I have all of my information, my file type, my file path, and I'm passing in my values. And this reflects right here in specific data. Now, if you want to use output data or analytics data, you'll have to use a set transaction status activity. If you're familiar with the RE framework, this is how at a high level it works. So you process your queue item. At the very end, when you're finishing up your queue item processing, it goes into your set transaction status YAML file, and it will actually update your queue item to reflect whether it was successful or if it failed. So these are the properties that you have for your set transaction status activity. So you'll see in here for input, we have analytics and we have output. And these are also a collection of name value pairs, really similar to what you see here for item information. Now, what's the difference between using add queue item activity versus set transaction activity? Well, it depends on where your data is, or what stage your data is. So if you're using add queue item, our data here, this is going to be in the very initializing step. So when you're just creating your queue item, whatever data you have available there, you could use it here. But sometimes you don't have your data ready until you finish processing. In that case, you'll want to use your set transaction status and update your custom variables over here, whether it's analytics or output. Now that's for your queues. Let's talk about custom logging. So if you cannot use queues, you're going to want to do some custom logging. And over here, I have a really simple sequence. Here, I have an example where I'm processing invoices. And I want to capture the invoice number and the invoice status for every invoice. So what I do here is I have my add log field activity. And then right after here, I have a simple log message. Inside my add log fields, again, it's a name and value collection. So in here, for example, I'm saying my invoice number was 123. My invoice status, I'm setting it to process, and I'm logging that information. So now later, when I go to see my logs, if you see down here, we have all of our standard components. So we have message, level, log type, timestamp, and all of this standard information that's already captured for us. But if you see down here, we also have invoice number and invoice status. And these are my new fields that I just created. And then later on, this will be available for us in Insights, and we can start creating all of our custom metrics, whether we're using custom logging or queues. Now, best practice and what you want to do is you want to use queues whenever and wherever you can. It cuts your custom logging by up to 50%, and it still captures that same data. Because of the way queues are structured, they capture standard information for us. So things like how long did it take my process to process my transaction, or how many transactions did I process? And it also at the same time allows us to store those business variables. It just makes tracking so much easier. And to help you guys visualize this, I'm going to show you a use case example for processing invoices. So let's take this automation. We're going to process invoices, and here are the rules set for us. Any invoice that's less than $10,000, we want to process them immediately and approve them. If it's between $10,000 and $100,000, we want to check for some required fields. And if it's greater than $100,000, maybe that's just too high, we want to reject them and we want to send them for manual review. Now, looking at this automation, I can already think of four key KPIs that we want to check. 1, on average, how long does it take to process each invoice? 2, how many invoices were actually processed? 3, how many invoices ended up being rejected? And 4, how many times did my process error out while processing an invoice? Now, let's take this automation idea and see the difference between using queues and custom logging, so you have an idea of why we say queues are best practice and the emphasis around it. Okay, let's take the very first one. Average time to process each invoice. If I'm using a queue, I don't have to do anything additional because queues already capture for us transaction start time and transaction end time. So all we would have to do is take the difference between that and get the average. So nothing additional to do if we're already using a queue. Now, if we did not go down that queue route and we are going to go and do custom logging, now I need to create 2 new variables and track them. 1 being my start time and 2 being my end time. Now let's go look at invoices processed. For me to get the total number of invoice processed, if I'm using a queue, all I need to do is get my count of transactions with the status being successful. So there's nothing extra I have to do as long as I'm using my RE framework. Nothing additional to do. The queues already capture that for me. Now, if I'm using custom logging, I now need a new field to capture and keep track of the total number of invoices being processed. Now, if I want to look at my number of rejected invoices, this is basically my business exceptions. So I'm going to go into my queue and I'm going to get the total count of business exceptions. And that's already captured for me in my queue, so I don't have to do anything additional again with queues. Now, if I'm going down the custom logging route, I'm going to need a field to keep track of my number of rejected invoices. So that's an additional custom log. We're now up to 4 custom logs that we need. Now, if I want to see the total number of errors, that's going to be my application exceptions. So if I'm using a queue, again, that's already stored for me, that's captured, I don't need to do anything. If I'm going to use custom logging, I now need a field to keep track of the number of errors needed to log each error. So that at minimum is an extra 1 log field that I need to create. So if we're looking at just these 4 KPIs, there could be much more that we would want to capture, but just looking at these 4, for queues, I don't need to do anything else. These are all already by default captured for me. So if I'm going to go down that custom log route, I now have 5 variables that I need to keep updating and keep tracking in my workflows so I can capture these KPIs in my dashboards. And that is why we always say use queues wherever you can. It just makes tracking so much more easier, especially when it comes to metrics. And my last tip for you guys, which is really important, sometimes overlooked, it's very important to know the metrics you want early on in your development stage or in your design stage. You don't want to wait until your code is live and in production and then later on say, I want to see my business exceptions and I'm using custom logging. Because that now means you have to go back to your code, you need to update that, and you're going to lose out on time where you could have these metrics. So it's really important to have this conversation early on. Don't wait till the end. Thank you all. This is all I had, and now I'll be passing it back to Michelle.
Thank you so much, Dina. Thank you, AJ. I just want to wrap it up with a quick few resources that are probably going to be very useful to you. I have a whole blog series about reporting and analytics. You can find those on our community blog. You can also use our Academy course to get started. We will have a course for Insights Cloud very, very soon. Right now it's for Insights on-prem. And you also have our documentation at your disposal. So we have separate documentation for our cloud and on-premise product. And the way you can tell the difference is the cloud product has V0 when you're picking the version. And with that, make sure you're checking out our website. It's uipath.com/insights. And with that, thank you so much. We really enjoyed walking you through Insights. So AJ, Dina, anything you guys want to close out with?
Thanks again for listening in, and hope that you can measure all of the metrics that you want to see insights on.
Thank you guys for listening in on this, and hope you guys really benefited from this.
Thanks a lot.